You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Hello, welcome to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Its purpose is to dissect horror films, both old and new. This current season, we've been dedicating to the late, great Wes Craven in what I'm calling the nightmare years. The reason being is that we're kind of looking at the middle part of his career, which is bookended by A Nightmare on Elm Street and Wes Craven's New Nightmare. And all that comes in between. So we're just kind of on that journey at the moment. We've done A Nightmare on Elm Street, and we've spoken about Chiller as well, which was a made-for-TV movie that kind of came out as well. Now we're kind of moving into yet another made-for-TV movie. This one was called Deadly Friend, and it starred Christy Swanson in there as the titular character, I guess. Before we dissect the movie itself, I should introduce myself. I'm the host for the podcast. My name is Saul Murte, as always, and I'm joined for this discussion with Miles Davies. Welcome aboard, Miles.
Hello, glad to be aboard.
So good to have you on this one, buddy. I know when I was first casting around saying, like, you know, we dedicate our first season was dedicated to the early Wes Craven films. And I always said that we were going to come back and look at his middle years. And when I kind of banded out the list of movies that we were going to go through, you quite eagerly jumped up and down on this one, saying that you definitely wanted to put your name up and chat with me on this one. Mainly because, as you said, it had a huge impact, or it had an impact on you as a kid when you watched it. Can you just kind of talk us through that when you first watched it, kind of your thoughts at the time of the movie?
Yeah, I hopped onto it, and I as soon as I started watching it again, because it's been many, many years.
Yeah,
I got 10 minutes into it, and I instantly regretted putting my hand up. I remember I loved this film when I was a kid. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I have absolutely no idea why. When I saw it, because it came out in 86 or something, I was 15 years old. I think I had a bit of a crush on Christy Swanson.
I was just about to say, like, what I have to admit, because I used to like her too way back when, and when she
you wouldn't like it now because she's like, you wouldn't like it now because she's a crazy Fox News Trump nut.
Yeah,
she's insane. She's batshit insane. If you follow her Twitter account, it's just series upon Trumpisms, and it's very, very disappointing. You know, extremely disappointing.
Yeah, far out. That's a shame.
She's turned into Beady or BB or whatever it is.
She's a nutbag. Yeah, BB.
But yeah, so it's funny because I always used to hire this video out, and I think it was maybe just because I had a bit of a crush on Christy Swanson.
Maybe that's what it was.
But it was fucking awful.
That's hilarious.
There ain't no coming back. This is the really real world. There ain't no coming back.
And I read into it, and obviously he had some studio issues and stuff like that. So
yeah. I was actually, it's probably a good point to mention that too, because I was like, I kind of I've been reading a great autobiography about Wes, not autobiography, a biography on Wes Craven, and I can't remember for the life of me remember the name of it off the top of my head. It was something like The Man in His Nightmares, but it goes quite into detail about each of his movies, and it was talking about Deadly Friend, and it's interesting because maybe it's a point to mention this before we go into the plot line and discuss it, because it kind of gives a bit of background as to how this film kind of generated or how it was born. So it was based on a novel that was just called Friend by Diana Henstall, and it was Warner Brothers that picked it up. And we're talking low budget horror, and at the time was just a low budget made for TV film. It was Warner Brothers wanted to pick up on the success of E.T. and Weird Science, which paved the way for like films like Short Circuit and Space Camp, and along with it, Deadly Friend, which we're going to be talking about. And originally it was conceived as a PG rating, and it was under the working title Artificial Intelligence. And it was meant to be like this romantic kind of teen kind of sci-fi kind of adventure, essentially was what it was billed as, yeah? And Wes Craven didn't want to make a horror movie. Like, he'd just done, and it seems like this is an age-old conversation that we have about him. He'd just done A Nightmare on Elm Street and the success of that. And he always wanted to make satire or comedy. Like, that was his, he always felt like that was his calling. And you kind of see the essence of it in Scream, in the Scream franchise. But like in this instance, he, because of the success of horror films that he was making, he just kept getting typecast with, with scripts kind of sent to him, which would have a horror bent. And so he was kind of keen for this one because he needs, I think this was in the words of, I think this was not the producer, maybe the writer, and I'm talking about Wes Craven and his approach. He said he wanted to keep it in a similar tone to Starman, so the Jeff Bridges film with by John Carpenter. That was kind of what he was going for, albeit in a very kind of low budget approach to it. When Warner Brothers caught wind of, like, so they basically kind of shot everything, but when Warner Brothers caught wind of who Wes Craven was, because like by that point A Nightmare on Elm Street really kind of was doing the circuits, they kind of went, let's make it, because they thought, and a lot of Wes Craven fans were wanting him to do a horror next as well. So they were like, let's get him to let's make it horror. Let's get him to kind of go do 6 extra scenes with a horror bent and make them each bloodier than the last, was their brief. So he had to kind of go back and kind of make the movie like with these 6 extra scenes in it, essentially, to kind of ramp up the blood factor, much against his kind of, he what he wanted to do. And a lot of people, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people have said, like critics at the time and stuff have said, like, these graphic scenes feel more like an afterthought when you watch it. Yeah. Which I realized at the time while I was watching, because I watched the movie, then I read the book about it, the stuff about it. So it'll be interesting to see your point of view. Is that how you felt about it when you watched it this time round?
Yeah. It's funny. It's. I always saw it as a horror. Yeah. But then I started looking at it as a grown up, as an adult, basically, when I watched it recently, and just went, there's another story here, but it's just been buried under a bunch of schlock. Yeah. And it's like, how do you give someone $5 million? Yeah. And not know who they are? Can they give me $5 million to make a movie? And I don't know. Well, like,
yes, weird. It is weird, isn't it? Because he would even if they weren't aware that he was the guy that directed A Nightmare on Elm Street, for argument's sake, so that was out of the way. Like, he's still done a fair hit of stuff. Like, we're talking, like Last House on the Left and The Hills Have Eyes has already been and gone. Yeah, at this point, right? So, yeah,
he hasn't done a great deal of dramas.
No, he hadn't. He's
known for his horror films, so. Yeah, I don't know why these were they coked up or were they drunk or something? And I went, okay, that sounds like a great idea. Okay, here's all this money. Now make us.
That's right. So it is interesting, isn't it? Because so what we end up getting, though, because of that, is like this a kind of a thing which, again, I'm quoting here, but too rough for light-hearted teen fantasy, which is kind of what the premise was. But too light-hearted for hardcore horror fans. Yeah. And we're kind of bridging somewhere in between. And because of that, it becomes just this empty film. And a bit of a mishmash. And I remember, like, as I was watching it, it takes some serious left turns. as it's going through it. You kind of go, oh, okay. And like the beginning is such this long preamble of introducing who BB is. This, for want of a better word, a cross between Number 5 and Wally. This kind of cute, kind of bumbling, robot, essentially.
Yeah.
Who
with a weird voice.
Yeah, who is
very organic voice rather than a bunch of bleeps and stuff.
Yeah.
What I didn't get as well is he's like a master control, like a coder and electronics, and yet for some reason programming the English language into this particular robot, artificial intelligence, was beyond his skills.
Yeah.
So it just mumbled a whole bunch of like gurgling mess. I don't get it.
No, that's right.
Put a dictionary in it.
And on that, so the guy that provides the voice for BB is Charles Fleischer, who did the voice of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And he crops up as the Doctor in A Nightmare on Elm Street, so the one that treats Nancy for the REM kind of stuff to kind of monitor her sleep patterns. That's Charles Fleischer. Yeah. So, but he's more known for his voice work. Obviously Roger Rabbit is the big one, but primarily like he's known for that. And it's one of those people, if you look him up, his face looks really familiar too. So, but he's, as I said, there's been a lot of stuff. So that's kind of interesting too. I think that's all we'll say on that. I'll throw in a few more kind of factual stuff towards the end of it, but maybe let's kind of look at the plot line. Because we do, like you said, let's talk about Paul Conway. He's the this teenager genius kind of scientist kind of guy. And he's played by, and I'm not going to get his surname right, but Matthew Laborto. And he was a kid actor. He was like kind of Little House on the Prairie.
That's right.
Way back. So
I love Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah,
I remember him from that. And he had a twin brother, I think, as well.
I think,
or just a brother, maybe.
I think you're right. I do remember a brother, but
might have been in Heathers. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to remember now, but yeah, you are right. But so he was kind of known for that more than anything. Hasn't really done anything after this other than like a few voice work again, bits and pieces.
No, the 80s weren't kind to him.
No, got about out. But yeah, so that's that guy there. So he's, as I said, was he turns up. He's basically moved into this new town. He's got this kind of quirky robot thing. Oh, but the opening of the movie actually sees this kind of drunk bum kind of character, doesn't it? Who comes up to, I don't know whether he was going to steal something from the car, but all of a sudden this kind of, you just hear the guy go, "Oh, you're a bit cute." And then this robot hand comes out and starts trying to strangle him. Just to the point when, Paul Conway and his mum start kind of coming back to the car, and, this robot lets go of the bum, and the mum and the son kind of get in the car and drive off none the wiser. And yeah. So we kind of get this really early hint, like this robot isn't all he's cracked up to be.
He's a bit dodgy, that robot.
He's a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
So
on the murdering side.
Yeah, that's right. He's a bit unhinged. We
True.
we arrive at this whatever the town is, suburban America.
Suburban America, which has no traffic on their roads.
No traffic.
I know driving along, and they were wide, empty roads, and I was like, it was the 80s. They didn't have many cars back then, obviously.
No. Yeah. Or when they, or when they just cornered off the road, as they do to do the shoot.
I think that was probably it, actually.
Yeah, they just thought, oh, don't worry about any other cars. We'll just.
And they couldn't afford any other cars.
Yeah, that's it. So they arrive on the scene. We get introduction to some of the other players of the piece. So we get to see I think he's a paper boy or something. But anyway, he becomes like the best friend character called Tom,
which is introduced via the lamest bike stunt in history of I've never seen anybody fall off a bike like that, and it was just a sight to behold.
He has a habit of doing that throughout the entire movie, though, doesn't he? Just kind of falls off the bike. Yeah. I think he played a little role in Little House on the Prairie too. But yeah, so he's kind of introduced as the best friend kind of character. We also then get introduced to the girl next door. So Samantha Pringle, played by Christy Swanson, as we said. So the only other thing I was going to quickly kind of look at the timeline, if I can quickly. All right. So this kind of comes after Pretty in Pink and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which she was in. But before Buffy. Oh, yeah. So Buffy came
way before.
That's right. Okay. All right. I was just trying to remember, I was meant to look that up before we started recording to kind of get my head around what point of
I think she's like 16 in this.
Yeah, she's quite young.
The age, which is very unusual for the 80s. Usually they had 25-year-olds playing 15-year-olds.
Yes. That's right. And do you know what? Like she does a very. I'm jumping ahead, but she does a very good Elsa Lancaster impersonation in it.
Yeah.
So
what she got the
makeup that's across the. There's a bit Daryl Hannah from Blade Runner kind of look. Because that's what happens when you are kind of dead and mean.
Robotic.
Yeah, and robotic. So anyway, jumping way ahead, sorry. So we get introduced to her. We also find out that she has an abusive alcoholic father. So the Paul character, he's kind of already smitten with her. There's this really lame conversation he has with Tom shortly after seeing her, where he goes, "Oh, so who's Sam? Do you know Sam?" And Tom's like, "Yeah, nice tits," or something like that, and you're just like, "Right, okay." And the guy's like, and Paul's just like, "Yeah, that's right, yeah," and just like,
"Yeah, they are nice."
Such a lame dialogue. Anyway.
Well, there's 15-year-old kids, I guess.
I guess so. Yeah.
Say, how do you describe someone? They've got nice tits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that one. Oh, I know who you mean.
That one. We want the nice tits.
Yeah. Why didn't you say so? Anyway, so the more important one. Yeah. The more important thing, though, is obviously that she has this alcoholic father. So we already have somebody who's a bit kind of going to be somebody who's going to. I don't know about you. As I was watching this was a bit like you're watching it kind of as the characters were introduced, going, "Yep, that person's day is numbered. That person's day is numbered." Yeah. Just kind of lining up all the victims for us. Thank you.
Although the fact that she had the alcoholic father was actually probably about the only depth of any of the characters throughout the whole the movie. So
that's true.
Although Andy, I'm sure had a lot of depth.
That's right. I should mention, just while I'm thinking of it, just really, really quickly. So the guy that plays the alcoholic father is Richard Marcus, and he was in Tremors. He's what was his name? Nestor. He was the guy that was a bit of an out-and-out loser, essentially, and he's the one that jumps up on top of the tin shed kind of thing at one point to get it. Is that right? Or he's on top of the rubber ring. Oh no, that's the younger kid, isn't it? Anyway, he's one of the locals in the town itself. Oh, I've forgotten the name of the town now. Anyway, But yeah, just an aside. So he's another bit of a kind of a face for anyone that follows horror films and the such. Okay, so so we're introduced to them. We get kind of indications of BB being quite protective of Paul as well at certain points as well. We then kind of see Paul and his professor at this kind of scientific university that Paul has a scholarship in. And yeah, this was a bit weird because he was kind of teaching, wasn't he? And there's all these kind of algorithms and stuff that's kind of written up on the whiteboard. And I kind of, as I was watching that, I went, "Oh, well, who is this kid then? Like, what is his role here?" Because like I thought he was just going to be going to school, but obviously he's meant to be a genius. And that's right. And the professor was kind of like watching it, and there was a bit as Paul concludes what he was talking about. He kind of gives a bit of a chuckle, and you're like, yeah. I know. I just found that a bit strange, that kind of dynamic. I felt like it wasn't really explored properly, I guess is what I'm saying. Then what happens there? Then we kind of, then we get, so Tom, Paul, and Samantha start forming a bit of a friendship. There's a point where I think it's just Tom and Paul and BB, the robot, stop outside this kind of old woman's house, played by Anne Ramsey, who is pretty much in the 80s was that we need a grumpy old woman. Let's call on her. Like for me, she's always the Goonies, like, through and through. With the Goonies. I think she was in that Don't Throw Mama from the Train as well.
That was brilliant. Yeah, that's right.
But she's like, you name it, she was always like that one that, we need grumpy old woman. It'd be cool. And she does. She plays grumpy old woman, but in this case with a shotgun. And is really kind of anti anyone kind of getting anywhere near her property. She has this huge fence kind of, around it. So, she's got issues. She has issues that she needs to talk through, I think. We also then get introduced to the motorcycle gang with their kind of like very two-dimensional kind of lead.
Who they reminded me of? Have you seen This Is England?
Yes.
The TV series?
Yes.
Yeah, the guys that ride around on the scooters and the bully of that's who they remind me of.
Yeah.
They're like a loser gang who just think they're tougher than they actually are, and a bunch of wankers. I know you. I love that series, by the way. But yeah, exactly. And that they were like that too, weren't they? They were like, they were like the PG equivalent of what a gang would be, Like, so obviously, like, initially when this was shot, without all the extras kind of thrown in, that's what it would have been. Would have been playing to that purpose. Well, the lead bully had his henchmen, but they looked like they were the worst actors in the world. They looked like they just basically walked out the front of the studios and went, "You, do you want a job?"
I pretty much reckon that's what happened. They just went like, "We need," because none of them have any speaking lines, so they would have just been like extras.
Really uncomfortable.
We need a few people. You, and you this way.
Try not to look at the camera. Yeah. Try not to look at the camera. And they all blend with it.
And they all do, yeah. And the janitor, like, we're short of one person. Get the janitor. Just anyone.
But he's 60 years old. Doesn't matter. He can play 16.
He's got
put a mullet wig on him.
Yeah. He has youthful spirit. He'll be all right. So we of course we know this guy is going to get fucked up at some point as well. So it's just introducing another character just to have BB go nuts on, literally. And then we have montage elements of the Samantha, Tom, and Paul characters and BB kind of hanging out, playing basketball, goofing around as kids do,
joking about, killing hobos, doing what every red-blooded American kid does.
That's right. Stuffing cats into in the hole in the wall pay machines. Oh no, that's American Psycho.
Preparing to vote for Trump.
Yeah. Let's make America great again.
Yeah. We're boomers and we're going to own everything.
Oh, fucking hell. Okay, we could go into dangerous territory here if we open up. We could literally, both of us are pretty much like-minded on this particular topic, but if we actually open that can of worms, this podcast will be a very different podcast. Let's just say. Okay, so all right, let's see. So then we get the point where they go to play. They're playing basketball, sorry, lost train of thought. Oh yeah, so that's when they, hey, give BB a go of playing basketball. That was such a contrived kind of dialogue in moment. It's just like, it was so crap. It was just an excuse to have him there, and then he throws it behind him over a tree, and of course it goes into grumpy old lady's house, and she comes out, grabs the basketball and throws it into her own house, and then shuts the door, and she doesn't fuck off. And then we get, what's BB's eyes glowing. It's like, oh my God, don't mess with BB. What was that? So for some reason they decide, this is later on in the evening, is that they decide to play a prank on the old woman. And BB unlocks the gate, and Samantha rings the doorbell, but all the alarms go off. They hide in a shrubbery nearby, and then that's when the old woman comes out. She sees BB, and then she basically shoots him with a shotgun and completely destroys him. And you're kind of like, well, if you're going to poke a bear with a stick,
it's America.
Yeah.
They've all got guns.
You're on her property, Come on.
Yeah. And they've got guns. They're American. They're going to shoot first and go, oh, sorry, afterward. Yeah. So, kind of had it coming. And it was a bit of a cheap way to just get BB. Like, when that happened, because I thought, when I, coming into this, a novice to the film, I thought it was going to be one of those Robot Gone Mad movies, right? I didn't realize it was going to go a different way. So when that happened, I kind of went, and that was it. That's the last we see or physically see BB. And I was just like, oh, okay, interesting. So then after that, we have the bit of the romantic scene. This is where Paul and Samantha start she comes over to his house, and I think it's Thanksgiving or one of those, like American. Oh, that's right.
And they have their first kiss. When she goes home, then dad just goes ballistic, and he kind of slaps her around, and that's when he pushes her down the stairs. And she's knocked out cold, goes to the hospital. There's a bit where Paul, just as she's getting in the ambulance, Paul turns up, and they had that moment where the dad goes, I told her to clear the stuff off the top of the stairs. So he's trying to kind of, cover his ass, essentially. And so Samantha goes into hospital. She's declared brain dead and will be put on life support for 24 hours before the plug is pulled. So this was a big mass. This is one of those big left turns that I was talking about. It suddenly was just like, oh, right, what the fuck? Okay. I didn't see that coming, and thought, okay, the story's taking a very different approach. And this is obviously where Paul then kind of turns a bit Herbert West, and he decides, or Frankenstein, if you will, and decides to kind of take law into his own hands. And he takes the microchip, BB's microchip, and says he wants to sneak into the hospital and implant it into Samantha's brain to kind of reawaken her and give her new life, essentially. And he basically, of course it's going to work. And he basically...
Plug a chip in his brain and it works.
And it'll be fine. And interestingly, the way he cons Tom, his friend Tom, into doing it, he says, you owe me, basically because of it was Tom's fault that BB blew up, essentially. And you're like, right, that's just the lamest reason to get your friend to help you out, personally.
Yeah.
But Tom goes along with it. They both turn up at the hospital. They get before that, they're waiting to drug the mum so that they can sneak out. And that scene seemed to take forever. I don't know about you, but like, you're just like, oh my God, just get on with it. And like, but yeah, obviously she drops the bombshell thing of like, because Paul thinks it's going to be 10 o'clock, that Samantha's going to be switched off, but she turns around and says, oh, no, it's 9 o'clock. And it's like nearly 9 o'clock. And he then starts panicking. And anyway, so like she eventually kind of, the mum that is kind of knocks out from the drugs that her son's given her. They pile up to the hospital and he's kind of stuck in the elevator when the power goes off. He eventually gets in, steals the body, but doesn't have time to make the operation yet. And they do so. They bring her back to his kind of shed against Lee, and that's where they do the operation. Is that where they do it, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Or was it at the university?
Oh no,
Did they take?
It might be at the university. Yeah,
I think they take it to the university, and that's where they do the operation. And he cuts her open, implants the chip essentially, and then that's right. Then they take her back to his shed. They go back inside. The mum's still asleep. And they kind of make out that she just passed out. So kind of a lot kind of happens there. It's a very bumbling plan.
It's just weird, you chuck your girlfriend in the shed.
Yeah, that's it.
It's not abusive or kind of weird in any kind of way whatsoever.
Not
just chuck her in a shed.
Not at all.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, really odd. Really, really odd. Then so what happens next? Then like this is basically where things just go a bit batshit crazy from here on in, because so she's kind of when she kind of comes to when he activates the microchip, but she's very mechanical and robotic, like we said earlier, in her movements. And it kind of is suggesting that it's the BB is in control of her body with the microchip, so it's not really her. It's kind of BB using Samantha's body, essentially.
So essentially, a lot of red flags going off at the same time.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh fuck! They may have done it wrong.
Yeah, they fucked up. They fucked up good and proper.
So they're going, okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
All girls act like robots.
Yeah. And have that kind of, and I like the makeup. It looks good. Very 80s.
Extra eyeshadow is just, it's so emo.
Yeah, that's it. I like it. It's not what I was originally into. I liked the kind of sweet, innocent look you had before, but yeah. And the fact that Paul then wakes up in the middle of the night and finds her staring out the window at her father. Doesn't raise any more alarms. He just deactivates her and goes, I saw that out in the morning.
No red flag there.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, he wakes up in the morning, finds her gone, and then that's when she's basically kind of snuck over next door, and that's where she goes ballistic on Harry, her father, in the basement. In a scene where there's a shot of a boiler, which kind of, for me, kind of made me go, is this one of the moments that they've gone, you need something a bit more Nightmare on Elm Street? Because obviously anything with a cellar and a boiler in it, which is pretty much on fire.
That confused me. Like, does every American house have a boiler in the basement?
I don't know. I had the same thought, Miles. So if there's any American listeners out there, please answer us, because I kind of went, is that a thing?
The house warm.
Yeah.
What does it do? Does it just keep the water warm?
Yeah. I don't know.
Or does it keep our house warm?
I have no idea. I'd like to know. And that's, I know this is completely off topic, because I don't know about you. Like, did you have central heating just with a water tank in the UK? Yeah, that's what we had. Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently England is the backward country.
Yeah, that's right.
But they've got wood heating boilers that always going that you never have to stoke.
No, that's right. I've just got to go down again. The boiler's out.
It's just always going on.
Yeah. Anyway, so we have that whole scene, and actually, do you know what? This is probably one of the more graphic scenes of the film. Where we have her, doing her Elsa Lancaster moment and coming up on her dad and overpowering him, breaking his arm, like literally bending his wrist back, severing it, and then, pretty good, yeah, and proper old school kind of, graphics for that as well, like not graphics, what I'm saying, physical effects for that, and then pushing his face into the boiler, to have his face kind of burnt for a bit. That was kind of nice. Before, we don't actually see him die. Oh, do we see him die? Oh, it's hinted that she breaks his neck.
Shove him into the actual heater.
Yeah,
and then he falls out. And
yeah, that's right. And then he's burnt to a crisp.
Yeah.
And this is where then Paul turns up on the scene and goes, "Oh, what the fuck have you done?" Look, cover it up, it'll be okay. Just shove his body back in the incinerator.
Clearly he's a highly intelligent kid.
Yeah.
But he buries the dead body in a pile of coal.
Yes.
What do you think was going to happen to this body?
I know.
It's going to spill at some stage. Does he know something that we don't? That coal decomposes the body and gets rid of the corpse?
Maybe.
Or is it just... is he not as smart as he thinks he is?
I think it might be the latter.
Yes.
There is a thing, and this isn't me excusing his character, but where you kind of hear this a lot, where people are incredibly smart, but when it comes to basic things, they just don't know how to do it. And
that's true.
Dumb stuff, right? So maybe benefit of the doubt, this is one of those moments where he doesn't actually know how to get rid of a body. Give the guy a break.
You couldn't just Google that thing.
Yeah, exactly. Pre-Google, guys.
How do I get rid of a body? Oh shit! How do I clear the history on my browser?
Yeah.
How do I search for clearing the history?
Oh no! What have I done? Anyway, so they leave the body there, and of course that's going to get found. I'm just trying to see what happens next. So basically, he takes Sam back to his bedroom now, and locks her in the bedroom.
In robot sex.
Hey. And then, but then she still gets out. She still breaks out, and because she's got her heart set on having a few words with grumpy woman across the road. And this, I do want to talk to you about this, because she breaks. This is a very kind of like it ticks a certain amount of boxes here, as in like not boxes as in like good boxes, but as in boxes as in like we get from A to Z, and a lot of kind of typical horror tropes or thriller tropes, I should say, come into effect when we don't see Sam until right at the end. But she, the old woman knows there's somebody on the scene, the gate's been broken open, all that kind of stuff. But then
she's watching The Bad Seed, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Then we get the infamous scene coming up. And I'm going to jump to how it happens, but we essentially have a head explosion scene. Now, I know you're a fan of head explosions. So, and you like a good head explosion. So, regardless of, and I am going to come back to what leads to the head explosion, as far as the effects for said head explosion, how did you rate this?
You know what?
Yeah.
I was a fan. I was actually a fan.
Yeah, me too.
You know what? It's funny. You've mentioned that I'm a fan of head explosions.
I haven't mentioned that.
That's a reference to a little short skit I did, Danger, Danger, Danger.
Yeah. I might throw the link up for that as well.
Ben's head exploded. And originally, when we started, when I started creating, said mood board,
yes,
I did include a clip from Scanners and a clip from the basketball hitting Ramsey's head.
Yeah,
and that's originally how I wanted it to go, but clearly my budget was a lot lower than Wes Craven's, i.e., I had no budget.
That's right. Yes.
So I couldn't do it and let them. But so I did it in post. But this was a cracking head explosion, and just to see, I mean, clearly it was in no way realistic whatsoever,
No.
but it had a lot going for it, as in there was skull and brain fragments and blood everywhere, and some kind of wailing decapitated corpse, sort of weirdly flapping about in kind of, I don't know what it was doing, because there was clearly, it looked like there was two midgets in there.
This thing up and then falling over onto the ground. Yeah, that's right. It gets a little bit comical towards the end of the effect. But the actual, as I said, the explosion itself, I thought was really, really good. I liked it, and it was probably only marginally short from the Scanners one, to be honest. Like it's that good. But as you said, it is caused by a basketball being thrown into her head. And we get and prior to that, we get the whole Austin Powers bulldozer approaching security guard scene where literally Anne Ramsey's going, for ages before the ball finally kind of gets thrown at her head. And it gets pulverized. It's a bit comical, to say the least.
And to be honest, that basketball would have just donged off her head.
Yeah, it would have just, doesn't matter how hard. I mean, I know the BB robot thing is meant to be powerful, but it doesn't matter how hard you would have. Anyway.
That basketball would have squished and bounced off.
Just gone
straight through this head.
I mean, who throws a shoe? Or in this case, basketball. Look, it's a bit. It's not believable, but I applaud the end result all the same. It was a good effect. So she's gone on rampage again. She's killed victim number 2, and I think we kind of only, from Paul's perspective, he only finds out about it after the fact, I want to say. Anyway, but Tom, the best friend who we haven't kind of seen for a bit, he kind of starts getting really panicky at this point. He has a big fight with Paul. He's threatening to call the police. And this is where we get Samantha jumping out of the bedroom. She's in the attic at this point, but jumping out the attic window in like full on kind of assault dive down onto Tom to kind of attack him.
It's not a precursor to her other starring role in Flowers in the Attic.
Yes.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's right. It's a bit kind of like, what? Moment. And Paul, I can't remember how, but Paul somehow manages to intervene, and Tom kind of think he runs off. And at this point, this is where Samantha starts strangling Paul, and she quickly comes to her senses and then lets go, but she goes on a runner. And at this point, you're going, where the hell is this film going to go? Because the police then start coming on the scene as well.
Who knows? I don't even think that the writer and the producer knows that.
It's like, wait. How many? Give me a few more minutes. I'm still writing. Anyway, but she goes running off. The police are after a bit Edward Scissorhands moment where has to go on the run. And Paul runs after her. This is where, but then he comes. He bumps into biker dude. Gets into another fight, but this time with him. And this is where Sam then kind of comes back, picks up Carl above her head. The police turn up, and she throws him into an oncoming police car through the window, I think, killing him straight away. And then she runs off again. Paul still kind of runs after her, and I think he finds her back in his house or in the shed again, maybe. And there's a moment where we get a little bit of a hint that she's not completely batshit crazy. There is a bit of humanity or human kind of side of her. She softens a little bit, and we get that kind of moment where he or she touches the other one's cheek. I forget which way around it goes. But then the police kind of arrive, guns all aimed at Samantha. Paul kind of held back. She kind of thinks, Paul! And then runs towards him. And the police think she's going to go and attack him. So they basically kind of shoot her. and then she dies in Paul's arms.
Oh,
And that would be where the movie would end.
could have been where the movie would end.
If the movie had ended, and if I'm just going to get the guy's name now, the president of Warner Brothers, Mark Tapin, didn't say he wanted a different ending and came up with the idea of how it should end, which is what we get next. And that is when we have later in the morgue where Paul tries to steal Samantha's body again, at which point she comes to. I want to say she rips her face off and it reveals BB's face underneath. How does that work? And her skin strips away. She's kind of like half robot, has BB's voice. And then Paul kind of looks a bit shocked and she basically snaps his neck. It kind of cuts the black, but it kind of suggests that she snaps his neck, killing him. And that's how it ends. End of the film.
Which is why you do not let accountants write script.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah. It's
in the end.
I don't think it didn't. It did like it kind of like way back when before the genesis of Surgeons of Horror, we had a little escapade into Hammer horror films, and we did a little podcast on that. It kind of almost reminds me a little bit of some of those Hammer horror films, where the endings of stuff, like, particularly Frankenstein ones, where they were, God bless Peter Cushing, did everything he could to kind of haul those scripts across the line and make them at least semi-watchable. But it kind of reminded me of that kind of old school kind of horror, stuff going on where they needed that ending, and you're like, why you don't? Do you need
that ending?
Yeah.
Well, they did Carrie, and they did it with Friday the 13th, and
Carrie was the big one. Like Carrie, from the point Carrie happened, everybody wanted to have that shock ending. It was the invention of the dream ending, or the it's not quite over yet moment. We can thank Brian De Palma for that one. But yeah, ever since everyone's copied it, and it's become one of those horror tropes. So I'm gonna throw in now at the time this was made, before we kind of cast our final thoughts and bow out. Wes Craven at the time, this was where he first collaborated with I think she was kind of hired as an assistant at the time. Her name was Marianne Maddalena. And off the back of that, he basically said to her, you should probably do producing. You seem to know your way around this stuff. And he would then collaborate with her on numerous occasions, and namely The People Under the Stairs, Shocker, Red Eye, Scream 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. Yeah, so he worked with her a lot, and basically they worked together for some 20 years. So for a director and producer, that's kind of a little bit unheard of in Hollywood to have that kind of a long relationship, director producer. Yeah, they worked really well together, and this was the first time they worked together. And as I said, she was an assistant. Also at the time, there was a few near misses from Craven's point of view. He was originally supposed to be making Beetlejuice, and who basically I want to say it was Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was the producer behind that one, said he didn't think that Wes Craven could do comedy, so basically he said a no to that. So, and even though I think Wes was about 2 months into that at the time, so it could have been a very different Beetlejuice. He was also on board to do Superman 4, but had an interview with Christopher Reeve, and Christopher Reeve basically said, "No, I don't want him working on the project." So that's gone through. Yeah, and he was also being sued for copyright on A Nightmare on Elm Street, also at the time.
What?
Yeah, exactly. And basically, like, there's some kind of like policy or something. Like I've forgotten the name of it. It's like an equity policy or something that most directors, particularly if they're with a big production company like Warner Brothers or somebody like that, they automatically kind of go on it, and it kind of protects them from any of this kind of law stuff that comes up, because anyone can kind of go, oh yeah, that sounds a bit like my movie. And this thing went on for ages, this kind of thing. And basically, like, at the end of it, it was some guy. Basically, the premise of the thing was like the guy that was kind of claiming had nothing to do, no similarity to A Nightmare on Elm Street at all. It was basically like, I think it was an Indian director, and he said he'd written this thing about some guy moving to some Indian village and like things going a bit.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. And basically Wes Craven kind of just said, like, finally kind of went to him and said, what is it that you feel is the same as my movie? Because I don't see it. And the guy just said, they're both scary films. And like, that was it. Like, but because he hadn't got this equity policy, they had to kind of give this guy some kind of a sign out thing to kind of send him on his way. But he said that was a big learning curve for him, because he didn't realize this thing existed, that you needed this thing to cover yourself, right? He was just making a movie. Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because like, so since then he was always kind of covering himself. So not only that, but he was also, this was the same point where he realized that his wife was having an affair.
Oh, right.
So this is what's her name? Mimi Rogers. Is that right? Mimi Craven, sorry. Mimi Rogers. And Mimi was actually best friends with Sharon Stone. We from previous podcasts, we know that Wes had worked with Sharon Stone in Deadly Blessing. And he didn't realize how chummy they were. Basically, they kind of just got on really, really well. And this story sounds really a bit weird, right? Because so essentially Mimi leaves, and like, there's a book that was written like I think it was from a producer's point of view about Mimi's life and stuff. And in it mentions that she just had a very different lifestyle, and a lot of it Wes was just unaware of. He was just not privy to it. And when this is the weird bit, right? Apparently, when the divorce went through, Sharon Stone sent Wes Craven a dozen dead roses.
Holy fuck!
You're kind of like, what?
That's weird.
It is a bit weird. You kind of go, there has to be more to that, yeah? You don't just go back dark unless there's something there. Do you know what I mean? That just sounds like either Sharon Stone is completely batshit nuts crazy, or there's something deeper than that was never unearthed. I'm just saying, that just sounds like a really weird story.
I'm looking at photos of the two of them together, and they're just like walking hand in hand on doing red carpet stuff. Were they actually together?
Who? Sharon Stone and Wes?
Mimi.
Sharon Stone and Mimi. I think that's what it was alluding to. The book I was reading didn't go into that detail, but it sounded like that's what it was kind of saying. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I don't want to put the wrong words in. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to say the wrong thing if that's not the case. But that's kind of what it was alluding to.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's heaps of stuff if you look it up. And if I had the time and the energy, I would kind of look into that. But I can't be bothered. I just found that really interesting. Yeah. All right, so that's kind of a few tidbits that I had around that. And there's more I want to say about that, but I might leave them for a future podcast because they kind of come up down the track. So, all right, so we've got through the movie. We talked about the plot line. You were a fan as a kid. Where do you stand with it now?
It's shit.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever watch it again, actually, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's done its dash with me, which is unfortunate. I mean,
it's a shame. Like, you know, it's those.
I don't know if you're going to mention it later on, but the script writer is Bruce, what's his name? Bruce Joel Rubin, who did Ghost.
Yes.
And back it up, like, really good film.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. What the fuck happened here? Obviously,
Yeah.
You know, you don't let accountants step in and rewrite your script for you.
Yeah.
It's clearly what happened. This is standard sort of textbook studio interference, turning a what possibly was a good film into an absolute goldmine.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. It does make you wonder what the original would have looked like, for sure.
Yeah.
And what Wes's vision would have been. I mean, I love that. I do love the horror elements in it, like but it does jar with the film itself, and you kind of go, well, what are we saying here? What is this? You know? And it feels like it probably would have been a very different movie without that element kind of thrown in. And I think I'm probably going to say this wrong, but this is like something like the fourth made-for-TV movie or something like that Wes has worked on. So by this point, he was very familiar with that routine, and it's polished enough, you know. Like, and I don't know if he edited this. I know he edited a lot of his stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if he did edit this movie as well. Because like he made his name in editing, you know, like like skin flicks essentially when he was a bit younger. But anyway, like it's crafted enough, but like it's just the plot is is incredibly diabolical and
I didn't realize this was a TV movie. Like, I mean, I know it got pushed out for a bit of a cinema release when I was a kid, because I remember seeing it. It was on at the cinema. But I saw it on VHS because clearly I wasn't old enough to go and see it.
Yeah.
But just weird.
Yeah.
Such a strange, terrible movie.
Yeah, it really is. Really is.
Yeah. What an absolute mess.
Yeah, it is, and it's a shame and it was one of those ones, as I said, like I hadn't watched it at all, and I was kind of looking forward to it, especially as I said, I saw Christy Swanson was in it. I was like, okay, yeah, when she was younger, cool. Be interesting to see that. I kind of liked the premise of it. I thought, it could be interesting.
I mean, the AI stuff was quite interesting. Like, you know, they could have gone further with the AI stuff.
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
they didn't. They just made it into this cute fucking robot, basically.
Yeah. That would have been more interesting if they'd gone that way. But
cute psychotic robot.
Yeah. Anyway, but that was it. So yeah, interesting. And so I think we're kind of the same. Like, you know, obviously, kind of coming at the movie from different directions. As in, I watched it for the first time recently. In childhood, but we've kind of come to the same opinion of it, that it's not that good. Would you recommend it to anyone?
No, not in the slightest. Man.
All right. So best to be avoided. What about Wes Craven enthusiasts who may not have caught this? Is it worth their while, or are they going to get sorely disappointed, do you think?
I think they're going to get very sorely disappointed, unfortunately. Yeah. This is definitely a steer clear if you want to have any respect for Wes Craven whatsoever.
Yes.
It's just... Although you could quite easily just watch, you know, the first half an hour, and that's pretty much it. And then you got a nice little story there. It's when it starts to like have her die and then leave it at that.
Yeah,
because it's actually quite an interesting story up until the point where she dies.
Yes,
and then it turns into this weird sort of stupid fucking horror film.
It doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a lot of subtext and a lot of like actual story in the first half an hour of it, but it just doesn't seem to sort of go anywhere after that.
Yeah, just kind of gets ripped apart, really, which is a shame, as I said. All right, man. Well, unfortunately, like we're ending on a bit of a sour note with that one. We're calling this one a bit of a dud. Should have been dud friend, but there you go. We're calling it a bit shit. But do stick around, because we're going to kind of start. The further Wes Craven gets into this area now, there are some gems that are going to kind of come up. We've got a couple more of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise movies that we're going to talk about. But the next directed Wes Craven film we're going to look at will be The Serpent and the Rainbow, which, according to IMDb, is his fourth ever best film he ever made. So it'll be interesting to kind of really look at that one and see if that one too stands the test of time. And you'll be coming back after that to discuss Shocker with me. Looking forward to that too. So
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, definitely stick around for more of these kind of discussions. thank you for listening. Cast your thoughts. Maybe you are a fan of Deadly Friend and you're insulted by the surgeon's prognosis of Deadly Friend and how it stands today. Let us know. We're open to hear your thoughts. Until then, I'm your lead host and surgeon for the podcast, Sean Werty. Thanks for listening, and thanks for accompanying me, Oz Davies.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Music supplied by Peter Nizik. For more discussions or podcasts, head over to surgeonsofhorror.com or head over to our Facebook and Twitter sites for the latest news and updates.